Welcome to Farmcraft 2023. I'm Dr. Carrie Fowler, the Special Envoy for Global Food Security at the United States Department of State in Washington. Many people know me from my work to conserve the enormous and breathtaking diversity of our agricultural crops. This diversity is used in breeding new crop varieties that are adapted to extreme weather and are more productive and more nutritious. Of course, it's also important to promote investment in healthy soils to boost food production. Now, I work to enhance food security around the world. My love for farming and science led me to where I am today. Now, I'd like to invite you on a journey. But first, I need a bit of a change. Let's discover Farmcraft. Farmcraft is a free Minecraft-based game for 8 to 18-year-old students around the world who want to learn how to feed the future when we will soon have to feed an additional 2 billion people while our crop production will face the threat of climate change. In Farmcraft, you will have a chance to feed a community in a specific biome, and along the way, you and your team will have to make many decisions. Pick a specific crop, decide where to farm, prepare the soil, protect your crop against pests, and of course, avoid climate disasters. Once you will have your crop harvested, you'll have to decide how to transport it to get it to the market. You will compete virtually against teams around the world, and in the process, you'll learn and use the most innovative and cost-effective scientific methods to grow and to sell food. Well, the sun is setting, so it's time for me to get back. The U.S. Department of State is proud to support Farmcraft 2023 with our embassies and American spaces worldwide, working with our implementing partner, the North American Scholastic Esports Federation, or NASEF. Thanks for spending time with me, learning the basics of Farmcraft. I hope you will join a Farmcraft team and be part of our global effort in feeding the future.
All right, here we are. Hey, everyone. It is Farmcraft 2023, and we are here to share another challenge with you all and also to hear from one of our experts in food security and to take a look at the world and have some students play through and show us how it's done. So welcome. My name's Claire LeBeau. I'm Chief Marketing Officer at NASEF. And we're going to do a quick round robin of intros. So let's just go ahead and start top left. Eric, go for it.
I almost never get to go first. And I know I've said that at least once before, but I guess, I get really hyped when I do. So hi, I'm Eric, also known as River. I am the education content producer for Clever Like Studios and have been one of the co-leads on Farmcraft since its inception, which is year 3. And we're announcing Challenge 3 today. So I cannot believe how fast this season is flying by already because we're in regular season Challenge 3 announcement today.
I know, it's crazy. And we have a great expert joining us from the Department of State, Joseph.
Hi, everybody. My name is Joseph. I'm a Foreign Affairs Officer in the Office of Global Food Security at the U.S. Department of State. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited about this. I'm a gamer in my personal time, and so I'm really excited to participate in Farmcraft today. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you. So did you have gaming in schools like this when you were going through school?
I did not. And I'm not much older than our students here. I'm Gen Z, actually. This is part of the same generation our students are. But no, we did not have this at my school. I'm really glad to see you all have this type of thing.
That's awesome. Definitely makes the learning fun. That's for sure. All right. And let's go ahead and start with our students. So there we go. Right on cue. Marcus, why don't the two of you introduce yourselves?
My name is Marcus. I go to Rialto High School.
Awesome. And?
My name is Ninelso, and I go to Rialto High School.
Okay, thank you. And next in line we have?
Hi, my name is Juan. I go to Rialto High School.
Perfect. And our last group of two over there.
Hi, my name is Kyle. I go to Rialto High School.
My name is Jesus, and I go to Rialto High School.
Perfect. Awesome. Is that your school logo behind you there?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, you guys have quite the awesome setup there. I have visited, and it would make many students jealous, I will tell you that. All right, and rounding it out, we have Lynn.
Hello, I'm Lynn Scheib. I'm the Partnerships Coordinator from the Department of State's Office of American Spaces, and I'm really excited to be a part of this program. This is my second year with Farmcraft, and I started out as a gamer in the days when you had to put quarters in the machines, but I'm trying to keep up and be part of the game today.
Oh, that's good. I am still bragging about that centipede machine that I got that is proudly featured in my dining room. And since
That's
I
where
own
that
it,
belongs. You don't hide that like away.
you don't
You put
hide
it
it.
right in the dining room,
Yeah.
right? It's
Oh,
classy.
Yeah.
You have the fine china, and then next to it, the centipede machine.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
since I own the machine, I don't need quarters. I just know the way to like jerry rig it. So I just get unlimited credits.
You know,
which is
I
pretty
have
sweet.
no idea if anyone will know what I'm talking about, but you know, side art was really popular, obviously, when arcade machines were like, you know, and arcades were more popular than they are now. Centipede still has my favorite side art of any arcade machine. So there, I've dated myself horribly, but that's okay.
I am right there next to you, Eric.
Galaga was my favorite game.
There
Also
we
a
go.
great one.
Yes.
All right, students, do you have any idea what we're talking about right now?
It's fair if you don't. I was just about to say,
It's fine. That's fine. All right. Well, moving right along, we had some student challenges that we want to share with you. So we are today talking about challenge number 3, but we are going to share some videos from challenge 1, right, Eric?
Absolutely. So yeah, we had a few hiccups. We had, you know, some bugs to work out, and you know, we got a lot more submissions once that 1.5 version came out. And just a reminder, if you haven't grabbed version 1.5, it is available for download on the nasef.org/farmcraft website. So grab that one. Thank you again to all of the coaches, team members that we worked with to locate those bugs and track them down, because it's definitely different when you're testing internally than when it's in the hands of hundreds or thousands of players.
Thousands of people,
right? So, you know, we were able to knock all of that out, which is great. And so now everyone's getting those submissions in. And that just actually brings me to the reminder that we do require that submissions for the regular season challenges, the video diaries, do all 3 be in to make you eligible for both the raffled prize and for the overall winners when you submit your scores. And it's not too late to get those in. The deadline for getting those in is the deadline for the competition. So those stay open. It's not like preseason. Those stay open for the remainder of our competition. So there is a deadline on those. You can find that on the site. But you still have time to get all 3 of those in, even though we're launching the 3rd one today. So let's look at the first one. And in the first challenge, it was pretty much our way of introducing you to the world. We wanted you to play through. We wanted you to try to notice some of the differences we had between this and regular farming, this and a sort of vanilla Farmcraft or Minecraft world, between this and even the previous Farmcraft challenges, because we made huge differences. In the past, you only chose the biome you were going to farm in, and now you're choosing who you're going to feed and who you're going to grow for, and that actually has a massive impact. That's going to take us into challenge 3 too. So let's look at 2 of the entries from challenge 1. And we'll start with an old favorite team that is back to join us today from Uruguay. And this is Netherite Hose.
All right.
And they have a cool intro.
I love it.
Hi, we are Netherite hosts from Uruguay. For this challenge, we started exploring the world to see how Farmcraft works. We chose the temperate and the desert biomes to grow the crops to feed the island. On the temperate biome, we had a lower unit cost than in the desert. 3,797 versus 4,967. Farming in the desert was harder because there water was scarce. In the temperate biome, our expenses were lower than in the desert. On the other hand, the amount of boxes received was higher in the desert. Some Minecraft elements have been modified to make Farmcraft. For example, the bug spray is a snowball with its texture modified. The butterflies are modified bugs that give you money when you kill them. In Farmcraft, everything happens faster than in a real farm. There are water elevators and the crops grow very rapidly. As it happens in a real farm, in Farmcraft you have to get your supplies, manage costs, production and shipping, and take into account that your crops and soil may be affected by climate and also by bugs, weeds, and other pests. You also have to consider that every action you take has an influence on the environment and the climate. After reflecting for a while, we realized that it would be good if we get better organized since we started. We've always thought of this, but it normally doesn't end up being as we wanted it to be. We thought of assigning different parts of the soil to each one of us and also having roles to make it work more smoothly.
That is awesome. I love their summary. Things grow faster in Farmcraft. That's what's so cool about it, is that everything grows in this quick little, 10-minute cycle, 20-minute cycle.
The farming cycle takes about
Everything.
10 minutes. I was going to say, if you're growing crops in 10 minutes, you have revolutionized farming. We don't need to be here.
Right.
We're all done. We've done it complete. But no, in the real world, clearly it takes a little bit more than 10 minutes.
Right, exactly. Okay, so I have a question for our students. Are you organized in the way that you play Farmcraft, or do you just sort of go, okay, I'm going to give it a shot?
I would say I'm fairly unorganized whenever I play.
Yeah. So maybe we could take some lessons from this team, huh? All right. And what's the next video that we have, Eric?
So the next team should actually also be a little familiar, since they were our guests on the stream 3 or 4 streams ago, actually. And this was Team Wind Builders from Nigeria.
Good day, everyone. In this video, we are answering questions about our team's experience with the Farmcraft world.
Our initial process in feeding the island biome was buying pesticides and drones to destroy caterpillars easily and balance our climate points.
This was an amazing journey for our team, the Wind Builders. This challenge helped us understand how farming works and how much it takes for farmers to produce crops for us citizens.
We played 2 biomes, the temperate and the mountain biomes. The temperate biome had a low unit cost because it was harder to pass than the mountain biome.
The elements of farming that have been modified in this Minecraft map are the use of pesticides and fertilizers. It showed how much it takes for farmers to protect their crops.
The challenge relates a lot to real-life farming through the process of picking weeds and destroying caterpillars to protect our crops from getting damaged or eaten. The use of the tractor also relates to real-life farming, showing us how they used to harvest crops.
What our team would do differently to produce a better score is to try not to destroy our crops while destroying the caterpillars, and try more efficiency.
I think it got cut off there a little bit, but Claire, I feel like you could relate to that last part.
Yes.
Don't destroy the crops.
Don't destroy the
caterpillars. I don't know if you've heard that before, but
I'm taking notes. Definitely need to take some notes on that one. There is definitely a love-hate relationship with the caterpillars with Farmcraft, isn't there? It always comes up.
I think that's one of the reasons last season we put out the caterpillar skin for the players, because it's like, well, you know what, if you can't beat them, join them.
Right, exactly.
And the crops keep getting in the way.
I know.
Right?
How
That's
dare
true.
they?
That's true. Exactly. Well, we're really fortunate to have a special guest with us today. Joseph, I'm not going to try to say your last name because my own last name gets, messed up all the time. So I'll just stick with Joseph. But can you describe for us, what do you do as a foreign affairs officer?
Yes, certainly. So yeah, my name is Joseph. My last name is pronounced Forcherio. I know it looks like it would be Forcherio, but it's Forcherio. So what do I do as a foreign affairs officer? So you might be familiar with the State Department. We have foreign service officers, and those are our personnel that staff our embassies and consulates abroad. And every few years, they go from one country to another country, or sometimes they'll come back to Washington, D.C. and do a couple years in D.C. Working. What I do as a foreign affairs officer is kind of what those foreign service officers do when they come back to DC, but that's my full-time permanent job. So I'm not going to embassies and consulates and moving every 2 to 3 years. I'm kind of doing the work our foreign service officers do at our headquarters. And what that work kind of looks like, I'll tell you a little bit about specifically what I do, is I cover food security issues for the Office of Global Food Security in the G7, the G20, and in South and Central Asia. So a lot of that is collecting information.
I'm going to ask you, can you define G7 and G20? Because those may not be terms that our students are familiar with.
Certainly. So the G7 and G20 are what we call international forums. Some of you students might be more familiar with other forums, like maybe the United Nations. I'm sure you've heard of the United Nations. But there's these other two forums, the G7 and G20. And G7 is the seven democracies with the largest economies in the world, aside from India. So it's the United States, United Kingdom, Germany, France, Italy, Japan, and Canada. And then G20 is a more diverse group of countries. It's roughly the 20 largest economies in the world. And that includes all the G7 countries I just told you about, but it also includes some other countries like Saudi Arabia, India, China, and others. So that's what the G7 and G20 are, and they both work on food security in different ways. And so my job is to just make sure that the United States is using those forums as best we can to serve food security interests across the world and to improve food security.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So I think what we're going to go ahead and do is jump into Farmcraft. We've got Eric is going to be joined in the world by our students. So they will be playing through and making the decisions and that kind of thing. And then at the same time, we're going to ask you all kinds of questions.
Excellent. Cool.
So
yeah, sounds good to me. So I'm going to say, to the students, let's go ahead and make our first decision and we'll just start playing from there. So let's choose, and I'll leave this completely open-ended to you for this playthrough. So choose which biome we want to feed and we'll get started.
Let's see, Marcos, make the call. Which biome?
I see some debate going on. They're walking around. They're talking to different folks,
And Marcos, what do you want to do, huh?
What are the options?
You've got island.
You've got island, cold, temperate.
Mountain.
Yep.
Let's do
and our desert. Cold. All right, so we're going to feed the cold biome. And by the way, one of the things we're going to talk about today as we get to our challenge is, while we talked about where we farm making a difference in the decisions we make, what many of our players are starting to catch on to, and it'll be a focus more for this one, is who we feed makes a difference as well.
Got it.
All right, so at this part, we've got to communicate with everyone around our village, and we'll go back to asking some questions while we're doing that.
Okay, perfect. Let's see, Juan, you want to go ahead and dive in with some of the questions that we were discussing?
Yes, so Joseph?
Yes.
Yes. Joseph, can you explain what food security is?
Yeah, thanks, Juan. So we have in the United States government, we have an official definition of food security, and I want to read it to you. But I want to break it down and kind of explain in more easier language what we mean by it. So the way that we define food security is access to availability, utilization, and stability of sufficient food to meet caloric and nutritional needs for an active and healthy life. So let's just break down a few of the terms in there so we can better understand what we're talking about. So we say access to, availability, utilization, and stability of sufficient food. So what that means is you need to have access to food in a stable way, right? You don't just need to be able to go to the market or the store today and be able to buy food today. And then you don't have that. You can't go back for a week and buy food then. You need to have stable access to a food supply. So food needs to be available, and it needs to be available in a stable way for you to have a healthy pattern of consuming that food. And so then we talked about you need access to sufficient food to meet caloric and nutritional needs. So that's your caloric needs and your nutritional needs are different. I know we were talking about what you all had for lunch today, and several of you had chicken sandwiches. Chicken sandwiches are a great way to get calories, and they're a great source of certain nutrients. But if you had a chicken sandwich every day for 3 months, that would not be nutritious for you. I'm sure your parents have told you, like, eat your vegetables, eat fruits, eat different things. And that's because if you ate chicken sandwiches every day, if you only ate rice, or if you only ate maize, or if you only ate 1 or 2 different things, you might have the calories you need in your body for your body to stay alive, but you're not going to have the nutrients your body needs for you to have a good life, because your body needs different things at different times for you to live a good life. And then the last part of that definition, so the caloric and nutritional needs for an active and healthy life, it's in no one's interest to just have enough food in your body to live, but then you don't have the energy or the nutrients you need to go out and live a good life. You should be able to walk, and you should be able to run, and you should be able to participate in the economy. And these are all things that, to do those, you have to have a nutritional diet as well. So now that we've broken it down, I'll just read it one more time and we'll pull it all together. So food security is access to, availability to, utilization of, and stability of sufficient food to meet caloric and nutritional needs for an active and healthy life. So that means having a stable supply and availability of food for you to not only eat enough, but to eat enough of the right nutrients so that you can have a good, healthy life that is active. So that's what we mean by food security. So it's different than just not being hungry. It's a little bit more complex than that, but all of those different parts in the definition are really important.
That makes sense. And I know we've talked on other streams with other guests as well about a similar concept of it's not just having enough to eat, it's having the variety of nutrients and that kind of thing. So it looks like, speaking of variety of nutrients, we're working here on the computer to figure out the sequence so we know what kind of seeds we're going to plant.
I think they'll get it on the next one. Just got to swap a couple here because it looks like they've got all the right choices, just 2 in the wrong places. And this is where I love kind of explaining what our choice is, because it's never something simple. So we've got a red seedless dreamberry that is spicy. That is what the community wants.
Right. Almost there.
All right, so we'll talk to the data scientists, and I'll let the students decide now which biome we're going to use to farm our crops. So we know who we're feeding, right? We're feeding the cold biome, but where are we going to grow?
Man, y'all trying to do a temperate mountain,
It does help to talk to them, because really you can even base some of it on your skill, right? So for example, some of the biomes have more bug problems than others, and if you're not great at handling pests, you may want to choose one that has less of that and maybe more of the other problems.
If we need one, we could do it in the desert.
Yeah, but it doesn't get a lot of rain though.
Oh, you're right.
Island gets a lot of rain. Temperate just gets a lot of caterpillars and weeds.
Temperate's a good place to grow everything, right? Food
It's
and
kind
wheat.
of like the all around average, right? Like that's
Yeah, I feel like temperate would be the best one because
All right.
it's gonna be rocky.
Sounds good. Now we've got like the most decisions to make here as the farming process begins. How are we going to till? How are we going to seed? What equipment are we going to use? How are we going to spend our money? Are we going to do everything by hand? What's the plan here? So I'll let you start talking to the farmer and making some of those decisions. Was that the bell?
I'm guessing that was the bell.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was the bell. Sorry.
All right, I'm dismissed. I'll see you all later. Bye. No, just kidding.
Yeah, we're out. Awesome.
So kind of like y'all, Marcos, Ninel, or Juan, how do you want to tell it? Maybe not quite, or
I would say manual till is always good to go to.
Yep. So you'll notice manual till will affect your the time it takes to do your farming, but it has no cost and no direct environmental impact immediately, at least.
It does give minus 50 climate though. That's the
right. So we do get that right. When I say immediate, I mean we haven't destroyed our climate yet. It's a little impact, but nothing that's going to be detrimental just yet. This is a new way of done it. We've never done like from the outside in. We always go lines across.
That's impressive. I like it.
I was going to say it was fast. We got to talk. We got to talk quickly to the farmer though, because time's still ticking. All right. Next is seeding. 8-10. I would say that's really good. In fact, if you choose to fertilize, it's possible that we will over fertilize, and that's a problem. Not to mention that it costs money.
Chain plant or hire labor? Should we do it manually? Is this what you think?
We always do it manually, so we don't have to use money.
Use money?
As long as the person who asked is prepared to share seeds, because all of the seeds go to the person who asked for them.
Oh.
Nope, I'll do it myself. That's it.
I would go.
Let's go.
If you're on a keyboard, then Q will drop individual seeds. Holding control in Q will drop a stack. Yeah. It's a good shortcut to know.
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
All right, so while we're planting, Claire, do we have some more questions we want to throw around, or?
Sure. Let's see. I was going to ask Marcos or Ninel, but it looks like they're sort of deep into the planting right now. So I'll ask the next question and then we'll come back to you after that. So we talked about what is food security. Joseph, what's the opposite of that? What is food insecurity?
Yeah, so I'll try to keep this answer a little bit shorter because it's really going to be based off the first answer I gave you. So we talked about what food security is. What food insecurity is when you are not basically just not food secure. So that can manifest in several ways. So, when we were talking about being food secure, we said that you have to have an available and stable supply of food. You could become food insecure by not having an available, stable supply of food. If that food supply becomes disrupted for whatever reason, and then you can't go to the market and purchase what you and your family need, that can cause you and your family to be food insecure. We talked about that you also need enough calories and enough nutritious calories to live a good life. So one thing that can cause food insecurity is maybe you can put enough food in your body, so get enough calories and enough energy for your body to live and for you to continue to live, but that doesn't mean you got the right mix of nutrients for you to be able to go out and live a healthy life. So that's something that can cause you to be food insecure as well. So I think we're going to talk a little bit today about what also drives food insecurity, and I'll give you a few more concrete examples. But to answer your question, what food insecurity is kind of the state of not being food secure. And so things that can disrupt your access to a stable supply of food, things that can make you stop consuming the right balance of nutrients your body needs, or even events that cause you not to put enough calories in your body to begin with. So those are all things that can cause food insecurity.
So it's not just not having the availability of food, but sort of the combination, as we talked about earlier, the nutrients and that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, that's right, and that's why all the components of the definition are important. Because if you eat 2,000 calories of rice a day, we might say that are not hungry, but we would still call you food insecure because you're not getting the right balance of nutrients you need in your diet. So that's why I was trying to emphasize that all those things are important, because that we want people to be able to have enough food that's a nutritious food to live a good and active life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We talk about with NASEF, we've developed a thing for gamers that's a gamers check-in for healthy gaming. And one of the things that we suggest they do is look at the food they're eating. There's sort of this stereotype of gamers and the kind of food they eat, and it's not always the healthiest. And so this could be a factor too, not just what's available to you, but what you choose to eat yourself. All these students were good students. They went to lunch, and with their choices, they picked chicken sandwiches, but they probably could also have just gotten a bag of chips or something, which does not meet your requirements for healthy living.
Yeah, absolutely. Some people in the world aren't blessed to have many choices, and they just have to eat what they have. But in places where we do have choices, that is incumbent upon us to make the good choices for our body. So that's right.
Right. How are we doing with those caterpillars?
Oh, it has begun. I'm watching here, but they've got some strategies down. I'm seeing a lot of that kind of looking straight down to ensure you hit the caterpillar and not the crop, which is a good strategy.
To be honest, the main problem I have with this is I can move my hand even just a little bit and then I break the crop.
Yeah, you've got to be really precise.
Oh.
So one of the tricks, and we've talked about this one on previous streams, is the caterpillars spawn always directly on a single box, which means their shadow is always going to be directly in the middle, like you can see kind of on this one. And see, I broke that one because it wasn't right in the middle. So yeah, I gave a perfect non-example there on the screen. Not my intention.
What not to do. I'm the expert on that.
Let me show you exactly what not to do. Like that was totally what I meant to do at that time. Right, yeah. No. There is, if you're quick, there's an easy way to do it, even without the bug spray. And then, of course, if you use the bug spray, you don't even have to worry about the hitbox whatsoever. It will take care of the caterpillar without damaging the crop. But it does have a small climate impact.
Got it. All right. Marcos, you want to take us on to the next question? Or another, one of the other students there. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. We've been talking about food security and insecurity, so something along those lines. Yeah, go ahead, Juan.
Okay. How do armed conflicts drive food insecurity?
Yeah, great. So armed conflicts are one of the things that cause food insecurity. And you might be aware, Juan, and other students here on the call, that the world is currently in a global food security crisis. The level of food insecurity people around the world are experiencing today, it's tragic and it's historically high. And there's a few reasons for that. And one of the reasons is armed conflicts, how you were talking about. So let's just think about how armed conflicts might affect food security. So, one thing that armed conflicts can do is it can displace people from their homes, right? So if war comes to their country or comes, even up to their house, they can't stay in their house. They have to go somewhere else for their safety. And so in a case of a country or a society that has kind of small farm-based farming, when you and your family have to escape from war or from conflict and you have to leave your farm, you're not farming that land anymore, right? Because you had to run away from it. So that's something that can cause food insecurity, not only for your society where you might be harvesting your food and taking it to the market to sell it to others. That will also impact you and your family's food security too, right? Oftentimes people will eat what they grow. So if they're not growing that food anymore, they're not eating it anymore. And another thing too is if they were going and taking that to the market and selling it, something they were doing with that money that they got was buying food to eat. So if they're not able to farm and take their crops to the market anymore, they're not able to generate the money they need to be able to purchase food. So that's one way armed conflict can cause food insecurity. Another is, unfortunately, it takes farmers out of the field and they have to fight wars. We're actually seeing that in Ukraine now. You might know Ukraine is one of the most major and important agricultural players in the world. But unfortunately, because Russia decided to launch their full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Ukrainian farmers have had to stop a lot of them have had to stop farming because they have to go fight for their country. So that has diminished Ukraine's agricultural output. And it's not only in Ukraine, there's other examples, but that's one way that armed conflict can cause food insecurity. War and conflict destroys farmland. If that farmland gets hit by ammunition or it gets driven over by tanks and stuff like that, it destroys the farmland. It destroys farm infrastructure. So it looks like in here in your game, you have some farm infrastructure going on in here. War destroys those things. It can destroy ports. It can destroy grain elevators. It can destroy water towers and storage facilities. All those things hurt food security. And then just I'll name you a couple other things here about armed conflict and food security. Armed conflict causes and is caused by political instability. And political instability can, it makes it difficult to go into a market where you don't know if the rules apply that day are going to apply the next day or in a month because there's political instability. And then the economic instability that war causes or armed conflict causes. We talked a little bit about that, about disrupting markets and your ability to sell your food and to buy your food. But part of that too is just kind of when you go into a market to buy food, you have kind of economic expectations about how that will happen. So, there's a series of debtors and there's a series of creditors and there's an economic infrastructure in which you're operating. Armed conflict can take that and throw that out the window, and those rules are gone. And then it makes you as a seller or a buyer of food, it makes it more difficult for you to decide what transactions you should become party to. So those are all, I know I gave you a long list there, but there's many ways in which armed conflict can cause food insecurity. And I think some of them are more obvious, and then I hope I gave you some of the less obvious ones too, so you can see how bad it can be for food security for there to be armed conflict.
Yeah, I mean there were so many examples there, and as you were talking, we could see the chat on the screen and the students trying to figure out what are we going to use to transport our products from the farm to market. And I know you see a lot of times when there are, conflicts going on, one of the first things that one country will do to another is take out its transportation. So if there's a major bridge, then they blow that up, they take that out, and then that cripples the local economy. And that also affects your food security then.
Yeah, absolutely. It really shows how all these parts of our economies are interlinked with one another, right? And the logistical chains and transportation networks, it's all connected. And sometimes it's not obvious how it's connected until catastrophe comes, unfortunately, and then it becomes obvious.
Right. Very true. All right, so students, you're figuring out. Oh, you selected one. What did you decide?
We're going by train. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, let's head to packing. Oh, and of course, so here's the funny part. We're doing a stream, but this is good to know, right? The game is designed for 4 players, which means 2 of us got left behind in the shipping depot while everyone else goes ahead and does the packing. If we I'm going to try and peek out the window here. That's fun. We can see that the packing is going on, right? We see one of the players there on the platform, not very well, but there they are. But they're busy at work right now. So we'll let them work. And, maybe I'll come back to my human form for a few minutes for some of the conversation. And then once the packing is all done, we'll come on back.
Okay, that sounds perfect. So while we're doing that, and students, pack away. And we can't see the screen right now, so you're going to have to tell us when you have everything packed up and ready to go.
I can see their shipments on the scoreboard, right? But I can't see the act of packing. I am locked away while they do the packing.
All right, so It's up to you to do a good job. We're just over here waiting for the final results. So let's see. Does anyone else have a question? Or are you all too busy packing? Should I go ahead and ask another one?
I have a question actually when it comes to food insecurity, very specifically, and that is, we tend to think of these things, and the conversations we have, especially with Farmcraft, tend to be on a sort of national level. But how do we end up with sort of pockets of food security in areas or developed areas that otherwise are completely food secure, but we've got these sort of small bubbles or pockets of food insecure areas?
Yeah, so I think it's, from my perspective, a little difficult to generalize about that. I think you have to kind of take each of those pockets and look at them separately and decide why that pocket is that way. And I don't think necessarily you're going to find universal principles about that thing. But I think that one thing I will say about that, you said that we think a lot about food security at a national level. Really, our food markets are so global, and they're so internationalized. The level of global agricultural trade is incredibly high. So the food that a country that you might eat in one country, that made it very well come from halfway across the world on a huge, big boat on a barge. And so I just want to make a plug for that, we in the Office of Global Food Security, as well as the United States government, we think it's really important to keep the context of the globalized market of food. So one thing about that is it's really important that we are able to have open and free trade in food. So oftentimes you'll see countries, if they're experiencing some sort of domestic political issue or food security issues, sometimes they'll use export restrictions or export bans in an attempt to keep food in their country. What we find is that actually doesn't work a lot of the time. It actually has the opposite effect of what those countries want, because it introduces market instability, right? They're changing the rules of the game when people thought they knew the rules of the game. And so the open and free trade of agricultural products it really facilitates better food security in the world than there otherwise would be. I'm sorry I'm not directly answering your question, and the reason I'm not is okay. I think it's really difficult to generalize about your specific question, and I don't want to generalize. I think you have to look at each of those pockets. Sense. But I do want to say we got to think about it as a global network, because that's what we have. And that's how, when you can have Russia invading Ukraine, how you can have food insecurity across the world after that. I think that's a really good example of showing how the world is interlinked when it comes to food.
Yeah, and we did a challenge right at the beginning, our preseason challenge, where we had students go out into stores or into their local market and look at the price of food and also where did it come from. And we definitely saw what you just described, where generally the food does not come from a farm down the street. It's usually from somewhere really far away. Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome.
All right, so we've completed this playthrough, and I see the students are definitely going to talk to everyone, get some feedback, see what the scores are, the variety of areas, and believe it or not, in all of our challenges, and some of the students have caught on to this, as you saw in some of the videos that we shared early on. All of that feedback kind of lends itself to those conversations. So, for example, there was one particularly, I'll see if I can find which one it is, that talks about the seed cost and a specific biome multiplier. And people may be wondering what that is. And I will say, without giving it all away, because this is what we want you to kind of discover in our next challenge, is speak to the different biomes that you can feed right at the beginning. And there's some hints in the dialogue that they give as to what that multiplier is all about. Right. So what are some of the challenges of feeding different biomes? They're not going to be all exactly alike. What can be different about them other than, to be honest, the various climates or biomes that they're in? So that's all I want to say about that specific characteristic, but it will be a factor in this next challenge while we've got it up on screen.
That was half of a hint.
That was half of a hint, but I will say You know, I think this was our best live score. We did really, really well. 2030 is a pretty fantastic live score. Now, I will admit to the team, I'm sorry you can't submit that one. I was in there with you. I was, I think I count as cheating a little bit. But I think that may have helped with some strategy that maybe you didn't have before. I don't know if that's the best score you've gotten or if you're keeping that under wraps. Not bad, though. Not bad at all.
It might be because I wasn't playing.
Is that it? Is that the secret?
I think that might be part of the reason why their
I don't know. If that was the case, Claire, then all of the teams would be doing exceptional because
no, but you said it was the highest score on stream, and so I think it might be because I wasn't playing on stream this time. Yeah,
you weren't in the last one, were you? I don't know if you were in the last one or not. Oh, you were. Okay.
I definitely pulled the average down.
I'm just going to point out that you said it. I didn't say it. That's all.
I did. Hey, I will own it.
Okay, fair.
Yes. All right.
All right. So well done, students. Good playthrough.
Good job. Woohoo. Awesome.
You kept your expenses low, and the boxes received was I think
did really well there.
Right?
Yeah. So did you use a similar method for making decisions that you usually do, or was it a little bit different this time?
For my team, it was quite different this time. We normally don't have as much planning or thought into it.
Ah, all right. Well, let me point out.
Tricks to planning. Oh, go ahead. I would say one of the tricks to planning is knowing where you can kind of pause, and you did a good job of that in this one, where you can pause to kind of have these discussions, because there are times when you cannot pause. Like, when the caterpillars are invading is not a good time to deliberate strategy. However, when you get to like the station and you have to make your next major choice about like which transportation you're going to use or where you're going to feed or what biome you're going to grow in, there's no timer running at those points. So they're good places to kind of pause and say, okay, when we do this next part, what's our game plan? What's our plan of attack here? I've seen some teams, submit their videos and they're strategizing, while the crops are, while the soil's going bad and while the caterpillars are eating everything. And maybe it's not the best time to determine your strategy.
Maybe a little before that.
A little bit.
Well, and especially that's one of the things I love is that this isn't a one and done event. We want you to learn. What is it, what's the best way to water? What's the best way to fertilize? What's the best way to transport things? And you're going from different places to different places. So there are a lot of different factors involved. And we encourage you, play through a whole lot and keep getting your score better and better. And this is my cue to talk about one of my favorite things, which is prizes, because the teams that do the best do indeed get prizes. Students, what do you think about a $500 Amazon card to share among your team, right? That's pretty awesome. So that is our first place prize, is a $500 Amazon gift card for the team. And then second place is $250 and third place is a $200 Amazon card. And then I think Eric mentioned a little while ago, we also have a random draw, because we know there are some pros who've been playing this for 3 years and there are some who are brand new. So if you're new and you don't have a lot of experience, then, you still qualify. You'll be put into a random draw. As long as you complete everything, you'll be put into that random draw for a gift card as well.
That's exactly it.
Yep. All right. Well, I want to make sure that we give credit to the students. And so I want to put your names up here real quick. We appreciate your joining us, all of our students that are here today from Rialto High School in California. And then, Eric, do you want to go ahead and move on and talk about the next challenge?
Yeah, so let's do that. Let's talk about the next challenge, since it will be live. In fact, again, all 3 of them will be live, which is the super cool part. And again, it's not too late. As long as the season is ongoing, it is not too late to enter any of those regular season challenges and make sure that you've got all 3 set up. We shared 2 really good examples on this stream, so use that as a roadmap for what you want to share. You don't have to do it the exact way these teams are doing it. We've seen them done in a variety of ways, including there's a few videos we got that were like a face-to-face interview with the students, which I thought was pretty cool as well. So lots of different ways you can do your video diaries. We do not require that you show us everything that you're doing in World, but we want to hear your answers to the discussion and the questions and the things that you're exploring, your strategies, and so on. So this is the part that is, surprising. Claire, the registration button is still here. How close are we to that registration button? I think by the time we run into this last one, it'll be the very last day to get that registration win. So it's this week. It's kind of now or never, I guess, right? It's now or never. But so if you're still interested in participating, you have to hit that button right now. Go hit that button. But if you still need that updated world file that we mentioned earlier, here's where you can get it. If you're not sure how to run it or install it, there is a guide you can click on here as well. And you can find all 3 challenges now on the nasef.org/farmcraft website. So challenge 1 is still there. Challenge 2 from our last stream is right there. And of course, we are ready to talk about challenge 3. So I'm going to hit submit on challenge 3 and let's jump right in here. All right. So using the latest Farmcraft map. And by the way, before I even do this, before I even read this one off, there's this little show more that pops up right down here. You always want to hit that because that's going to expand that and show you all of the information, because some of it kind of gets hidden away just because of the layout of the site. So always hit that show more so you can see everything we're asking for. All right. So a little bit different, right? So when we did our very first challenge, we asked you to grow crops in 2 different biomes for the same place. So how did growing in different biomes affect your outcome? Now we want you to grow in the same place, but for 2 different communities. So the first choice is going to be the one you change, right? You're going to feed one community and you're going to choose a biome, and then you're going to feed another community and you're going to choose that exact same biome to grow in again. And that's the plan for this one. So using the latest Farmcraft map in Minecraft Education, work with your teammates to feed 2 biomes, different biomes, but farm in the same biome. Use the non-playable characters as guides. Consider the resources you need to successfully identify your seeds, grow your crops, all of the things you've got to do. I actually have to eliminate this. I just noticed this still says the desert biome. We're going to get rid of that. You can make all the choices yourself this round. So I will edit that before you even see it. But complete this task twice, right? Once growing or feeding one biome and then again feeding the same biome. Where you grow is up to you, but do the same place twice and see what kind of impact that has on your outcomes. Check those multipliers and ask yourself, why do they have different multipliers? Check the dialogue cards at the beginning to see if there are any hints there and see how that may affect your outcomes and why. Why does it cost? Why may it affect your cost to grow for one community as opposed to another community? That information is in there. So I will make that change, by the way. I'm glad I caught that now. That'll be changed before anyone even notices. So that's the good news. But that is the challenge. So again, the overall challenge is grow for grow for 2 different communities, but in the same biome where you farm. So for example, you could choose to grow or feed the island, and then you could grow in temperate, and then you could choose to feed the desert and again grow in temperate.
Got it. And again, all those details are outlined for you on the web page and on the flip page. So if you have any questions, just make sure you read the info that's provided. And as always, also, if you have questions, we are at info@nasef.org and always happy to answer those questions as well.
Yep. And below is the submission to the leaderboard, which brings you to that form. We are currently in version 1.5, so be mindful, make sure you've got that 1.5. But we've got nearly hundreds of score submissions already, and we are early in the season. So that number is going to go through the roof. So get those scores in. You are not limited to 1 score submission. So if you play and you're like, we got a great score, and you submit it, and then you're like, we did even better, submit that one too, because that's just improving your place on the leaderboard.
Perfect. And it sounds like our students today did a fantastic job. So we're interested to see. We all have this score that we can compare to. So now I'll have to see if you can beat your own score as you keep playing.
Exactly right.
Awesome. All right. So that is our wrap up for today. Thank you for joining us, Joseph. and students from Rialto High School. It was great to have you here and have Eric guide us through the new challenge. Can't wait to see what you all do and how your scores improve and how you do feeding people from all these different areas. Our next stream is on April 11th, so make sure you tune in then. And thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks. Good luck, students.